First of all, thank you for being on CX in the Wild. As I was mentioning before we started rolling, I spent a lot of time with my team. One, trying to find people who are coming to this show, and two, inviting people who I thought their voices would really matter, make a difference to the industry, unique perspectives, insights, thoughts, philosophies. And having said all that, this is your very first podcast ever.
Correct, yeah.
I am extremely honored to be part of your chaperone, your CX Sherpa to the CX community, if you will. Why don't we start with who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's John Burke. I currently am the Vice President of Customer Experience and Technology for Wine Enthusiast. We are a commerce brand as well as a media company, really focused on all things wine lifestyle. So everything from glassware, corkscrews, servingware, all the way up to cellars and things that help you store your precious wine. And then the content and education that helps you lead a lifestyle where you enjoy wine.
Wow. It sounds like you tried to say something very simplistic there, but you just unpacked so much stuff at our campsite for this discussion. First of all, I will say I worked on the Gallo account, the customer experience for Gallo, back in my early days. Wine is a very fun category to work in, number one. But when you're selling more than just bottles of wine, but you're selling the spectrum, your customer experiences, you start at low price points all the way to epic.
Correct.
But you also go from this whole spectrum of passion, hobby, enthusiast, activities. It's a whole vibe, wine is. Do you manage like 100 different personas? Like, how do you tackle this?
Yeah, we talk a lot about who our customers are. And, and I think one of the things we've found is that everybody likes wine, or a lot of people do. And that, liking wine, we want it to be approachable, right? Like we want you to not feel like it's stuffy and pretentious. It's a fun drink that brings people together. And so we have customers that come to us because they just want to store a couple bottles of wine. They want glassware. They want accessories. And then we have serious collectors that say, I have my life savings in these bottles that are memories from my wedding and my child, birth, and they want to make sure they protect and store and age them properly. And then we have customers that don't know anything about wine, and they come to us because they want to learn when they're in a wine store. They want to know what bottle should I pick, or what regions are good, or what is my palate like. So we have a lot of different types of what we would define as customers in our mix, which is nice.
And is it more like you have 100 different personas, or do you have like 5 key personas and they all have a journey that sort of escalates their passions? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's probably the latter. We've got a couple core customer types, and we're working on sort of defining the names and titling for those customers internally. But yeah, we have a pretty good idea of who wants to be a part of Wine Enthusiast and who's a part of our brand.
Fair enough. So you have this very fun topic. What are you here at CCW trying to discover?
So I was invited here to speak on a panel about how to influence in the C-suite and how to build trust within the business. And admittedly, having a little imposter syndrome as being the guy who has the seat at the table, because, it's something I've aspired to for a long time. But we talked a lot about how to get other executives to trust you, how to balance quick wins and sort of long-term thinking. And a lot of the companies we work with are also here. So good to connect with our current vendors, as well as got our eye on a couple new things we might want to try. And AI is the name of the game right now. And there's no shortage of companies to talk to about what that means and what we can do with it. So
it's so true. The topic you're discussing here today, it always comes up every year. The bottom line is, if we don't have alliances amongst stakeholders, change is hard to create. And some of the times I think as CXers, we struggle because we're trying to make changes on behalf of the customer, long-term changes, and they're not always reflective of the bottom line or the stock price. So what were your key tips today?
We talked a lot about how customer experience, it's very easy to view it as a cost center, right? We fix the things that are broken. I mean, there's this sort of healthy tension between myself and like our CFO about, are we giving away too much? Are we being too generous with our policies? And we're trying to find the right balance of making sure people come back for more, but we have to protect the bottom line of the business. Credit to the ownership of my company for recognizing that CX deserved a seat at the table, because I think otherwise everyone feels like they own a piece of the customer and then no one really does.
Facts.
And so we struggled a lot with that, and that was part of why I was brought in, was just helping to try to bring CX to the next chapter of the company.
Where were you before doing CX?
So I was at JetBlue for about 10 years before that, working in the CX space there. I didn't know anything about CX when I started the company. Admittedly, I came in as an intern. I was working in HR. And at that time, we had a bunch of different teams that were all customer facing. Our flight attendants were part of marketing. Our airport crew members were part of operations. And no one had that continuous view of the customer's journey. And so we created CX there, and certainly weren't the first company to do it, but I've been hooked ever since.
What's your favorite part about now being in a leadership role and being able to implement it? What were some of the key tenets that you brought from your previous learnings that you said, now that I'm going to be able to do this again, here are the couple of things I'm going to definitely make sure we do first?
Yeah, one of the big things I really try to focus on is balancing, humility and transparency. I said this earlier today. I think we're all kind of making it up as we go along, right? There's data, there's tools, there's best practices, but customer expectations and behaviors change on a dime. And I think going in and pretending like I knew everything there was to know about CX, or that I had all the answers, was going to come across very disingenuous. And so my approach has always been, here's where I think we need to head, because this is where it seems customers are, and this is what the data is telling us. But that might change in a week, it might change in a month. And that's part of one of the exciting things about it. Is I've spent most of my career in CX, and I don't think any 2 years have been the same. It's never gotten cookie cutter.
If there's two things you need to survive and thrive in customer experience, it's empathy and curiosity.
Correct.
And I think humility, to your point, is the wisdom to know that, to your point, it is a journey. There's a reason why we call it the customer journey and not the customer destination. So that's very insightful. And I love that you are thoughtful about the way you are trying to unfold for your teams in a mutually equitable strategy across multiple departments or stakeholders. What do you think is the easiest part of your job to implement CX?
The easiest part.
Yeah.
I think it's been a lot of fun to bring people along for the ride, right? Like at the end of the day, if you work in marketing, if you work in sales, if you work in finance, everybody has a customer. I think once we identify that customer, everyone has a wish list, right? And so it's just a matter of grabbing all those different components that come together. We might not realize it immediately, but I can sit in a room with our CFO and our CMO, and we might not say it the same way, but we all want to make the return process easier. We all want to make the journey through our website simpler. And so it's just about kind of finding all those little nuggets. I've had no trouble getting buy-in, which has been nice, because everyone's like, yeah, of course there's things we can do better. And that's made it really fun.
No trouble getting buy-in for the strategy, trouble getting buy-in for the budget, I'm sure.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
It's always a balance, and it's hard, right? Especially in a retail environment, if sales get soft one month or consumer demand and behavior shifts, we have to be a big team to support it. And so we're looked at very closely as well. Are there levers we have to pull over there to sort of keep things in the green?
And talk about a brand where seasonality sort of trumps everything. I mean, you could have the best ideas in June, but come October, November, December, I bet you get your priorities pretty clear.
Yeah, there's certainly that holiday demand component of our business. Our peak season is October to December, right? A lot of people come to us for gifts, but we also have, people that are homeowners that want to buy furniture and products for their house. And so there's all these outside factors, the housing market, mortgage rates, like all these things that impact whether a customer has the time and energy and budget to think about like what you could argue is a luxury and not a necessity.
Not dragging you into a political conversation, but it was fascinating to me, the effect that COVID and tariffs subsequently or after that, other economic conditions worldwide that just caught CXers way off guard. Like, it doesn't matter what you're crafting as the customer experience, if you can't deliver it for 90 days after you used to be able to deliver it because of supply chain, those are factors that I've always tried to express to, I guess, most CXers, but it doesn't stop with the connection of the customer. There is supply chain, there's economics, there's finance, there's globalization, there's commodities, there's politics, weather. There's all these things that are always happening. And the world is becoming more and more complicated and more difficult to navigate, it seems like, every day.
Oh, yeah. I have to say, I almost wish maybe it exists somewhere. I almost wish CX would become a major. I never thought when I was in geography classes that years later, the Suez Canal and supply chain would be a part of conversations I'm having on a daily basis about how that impacts container ships and transit across the seas and how we get goods to customers and back-ordered products. And I'm explaining these concepts of geopolitical craziness that on the surface you'd never think were, CX related, but they are.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm here at Vegas kicking off my world tour for 2024. I'm going to leave here. I'm going to go down to some other countries, but then I'll spend the whole back half of the year in EMEA and the Middle East. So I'll tell you a couple of things about that. First of all, I'm doing a story in October in Poland, customer care service as an industry, what it's like to establish and build customer care in post-communist Poland. So I'm doing that story. I'm a chairperson at a flagship event in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and then I'll go back down to Dubai to do some things. But to be in Poland, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, all during this sort of time there. And you think about a place like Dubai, I'm not sure if you knew this, and I'm backtracking to your subject matter at the university, but in Dubai, they have a thing, the government has a thing called a happiness metric.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they have a metric by which they expect all businesses to meet a certain metric requirement for customer happiness. So innovation happening elsewhere in the world is so much more, it's just more diverse than we ever think. In that side of the world, they now have started to establish international customer experience standards for universities, businesses, governments, and professionals. And they've been very successful on that side of the globe in multiple countries, establishing curriculum and standards, formats to deliver consistency. Because when you think about it, in the United States, you could have 5 CX experts in an organization and none of them have a standardized approach. So they're always competing with each other or a complicated issue, when in the Middle East, as an example, they're like, well, there are standards. Like we're all trying to tow in the same direction.
Yep.
So there are curriculums in Europe now for customer experience.
Very cool.
And so I'll have to get you involved in ICXI, International Customer Experience Institute. After this, I'll connect you so that you can be part of that. I'm trying to think about questions that only you might be able to answer about customer experience. Let's talk about, this is something I don't very much ever talk about on this show, the e-commerce of customer experience. You probably have, or potentially could have, a real perspective on user experience and checkout process that others don't. So many people are talking about customer care, the agents, etc. But let's talk about e-commerce.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate in my role to lead both customer experience and our technology teams. And so we've got teams responsible for the development of our website. In a digital e-commerce business, just like everyone owns a piece of the customer, everyone owns a piece of the website, right? Between our marketing and our brand teams. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're looking at finding ways to reduce friction and make sure that people have a good checkout experience. And, especially when you think about the higher end products that we sell, I liken it closer to a car purchase than just frivolous purchase you make. I mean, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars to store wine. I mean, that's not something most people feel comfortable just going to a website, clicking add to cart and checking out. So it's like, how do we provide that consultative experience throughout the website so that by the time it does come time to check out, we've answered every question you can answer. We have a great internal sales team that works with customers. Things like figuring out how many bottles do they have? What types of wine? Are they just drinking? Are they aging? Are they serving? And all those things factor into their purchase decision. But a lot of that is in the website. We have to think about how we're going to make sure that we keep people coming back.
And you do. They keep coming back. I mean, I think about e-commerce platforms that I've worked on where we're like A/B testing the picture, not like we're not trying to sell $10,000 checkout items. How much of that sale is human and how much of it is e-commerce design?
Yeah, we see about a pretty even split. The lower storage bottle counts, 32 bottle wine cellar, those are at a price point that maybe customers don't feel like they need to talk about it. It's for an apartment or a small home or a garage. It's when you get into those larger units and larger formats or furniture. We have people that call and they want to understand, what does the wood look like? Send me a sample. How big is it? Is it going to fit through my door? Am I going to be able to put it where I want? Can I put different types of wine coolers in it? I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that comes up through that pre-sales process. And so it's why it's nice to have really great digital experience. We just launched a brand new website in June of last year, bringing together our media and our commerce business. And then we have a fantastic group of just like really knowledgeable people in the wine industry that can talk to you about wine, that can talk to you about furniture, storage, all sorts of things.
That's really nice that you have such a nice sensitivity and balance to the level of human involvement with the price tag. But e-commerce and UX is so important. Do you have a particular thought or philosophy or strategy around the multilingual piece? Because I imagine you're not only in English, right?
We are, in fact. So most of our customers, we ship primarily in the United States. We've got some customers in Mexico and things like that.
That is so weird because, you hear all of these like Argentinian wines and all of these different, it seems like such an international passion.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity out there.
But people have to be ordering from other markets from you.
I think this goes back to defining who our customers are, right? Like readers of our magazine, consumers of our content has a global reach. Our products that you can buy, wine cellars, accessories, things like that, typically the footprint's in the United States. We don't really ship internationally right now. We do a little bit of it here and there, but our primary focus right now is in the US.
Wow. I'm just being thoughtful because I think that catches me as unexpected. I mean, you got to pick your battles. You've got a bazillion different kinds of opportunities to reach customers. You have one hugely passionate niche or topic, and you have to deliver across all these channels: mobile, desktop, and social media must play a significant role in your brand ecosystem.
Yeah, we have an amazing social media team, and they put out just some fantastic content. And what I respect and really love about it is it's not an in-your-face sales pitch, right? We're trying to build this brand about the wine lifestyle. And so they will post things like on Easter, it'll be what wines to pair with your favorite Easter candies, things that are just fun, right? There's no click here to buy now button. We're not selling you wine, we're not selling you a product, but it's things like that. It's explaining different wine regions and maybe little known facts about them. We had an interesting social media article the other day. It was an article about what to do with leftover champagne. And people freaked out because they were like, what is leftover?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. What, like, there's such a thing?
But you know what? It generated a really great conversation about how people consume champagne and what they might do with it if they have leftovers.
Brilliant.
So credit to them. I mean, just a fantastic team.
All right. Well, I picked your brain. My last question would be, from your perspective in an e-commerce, customer experience, retail-ish, that part of the map of customer experience, what would you say are the top 4 roles and responsibilities on the team to do that kind of CX right? And let me just tell you why I'm asking you this. If I ask this question of other people, they might say something related to the call center, or they might say something related to marketing, or they might say something else. But I think because you have e-commerce, when you're building a CX team that relies heavily or works heavily in e-commerce, what are the 4 key roles or the 3 key roles you think for that genre of CX?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and it maps directly to how we set up the team. So we think about the way customers interact with us as really sort of 4 buckets. There's that general sort of call center post-purchase support. That's the price of entry, right? Like everyone's got to be good at just talking to customers, helping them with issues.
Answering the phone.
Answering the phone, exactly. We have a team focused exclusively on the delivery experience. I mean, again, you think about these products, they're coming on third-party trucking company, they're entering your home, they're installing furniture in your house. So we have a team that's focused on managing those relationships with the vendors, making sure we set a standard, because in those cases, the customer looks at it as wine enthusiasts entering their home, but in a lot of cases, it's a partner. And so making sure that experience is consistent with our brand and our values. The other huge area for us is technical support. We talk a lot about how do we get customers to come back more often. If you buy a very expensive wine cellar, you expect that product to last. And so it's not the kind of product you're going to buy and then say, oh, it broke down a year later. We stand behind our products, and we have a whole team focused on, I've got refrigeration experts and people that understand electrical components that can explain error codes and flashing lights on your wine cellars and things like that. And then lastly, and probably the newest piece of our business, is really just we've established a voice of the customer program, which I know is a buzzy term, but for us, it's just been about really learning what drives customer satisfaction for us and what's important to them. And we're finding interesting data about what we thought was important and maybe they don't care as much about, things that we thought we were doing really great in, that they're saying, hey, we love what you do, but we want you to do more of it. So those, I would say, are probably the four key areas for us.
Fascinating stuff. Well, I think you've provided a lot of unique perspective for the audience, because my goal is always to connect the audience to you, to hear what you have to say. But is there anything from the audience? Because we'll when we publish your story, we'll have ways to connect with you on LinkedIn or whatever. Is there something you're looking for from an audience of 300,000 CXers worldwide? Is there something, if they listen to your podcast and you say, I'd like to hear more about this, if you reach out to me and say that, well, how would you like to engage with the world community?
I look around this room specifically, and there's a lot of tech. There's a lot of AI, a lot of chatbots. We're still forming an opinion of where AI and automation and self-service fits in such a high-touch business. So I am always looking for feedback on, where do you want things to be self-service? Where do you really think that human touch matters? And so would always value perspectives from people on how do you find that right balance?
Okay, it's on the record now. Thank you so much for being on CX in the Wild. I really appreciate it. And welcome to your first podcast, by the way.
Thank you for having me. It was a great honor, and I really appreciate it.